Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder 2 Duck Talks number 73. And today I have four big topics. First of all, Operation Frost, and also the comparison between Operation Frost and Operation Heat. A little bit of a comparison between the rewards and the aftermath, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think then also after this we go to Gaijin's self-fulfilling prophecy. Queue times versus balance. So the same old question, why Gaijin doesn't give us player decompression. A little bit from the perspective of Gaijin, but still a little bit of a rundown why I think Gaijin is wrong. Then at the third big topic we have a fishing update for this year, for 2020, because I have made a lot of experience last year, but I really didn't convert this in all that many videos, because this is something that I really enjoy, to have my to have silence, to not get stressed out, and then to handle a camera while trying to handle a fish. That's not so nice in terms of footage quality, but even more important, not so nice for the fish if it takes longer than necessary, right, to get the fish into the net and then to just butcher it or release it again. And then the last topic is obviously the questions from the last Duck Talks from the last decade. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First topic, Operation Frustration. Operation F.R.O.S.T. And there were three different aspects: the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to begin with the good. Now, whatever you want to call Gaijin out for, this Operation Frost and Operation Heat are significantly more user-friendly than those assembly tasks, in my opinion, for example, with the IS-7, because you can directly plan what you can do and how you can achieve the goal. So first of all, you could achieve the stars by normally playing. It was not bound to an event. You didn't have to spend time in the assembling stuff and so forth. So by normally playing, you could achieve the goals necessary. It was not bound to an event. You had 2 days time per star, which is plenty in my opinion. And I think that also you only had to fulfill 3 out of the 5 tasks to get a star, and you only had to get 10 star per vehicle class out of 12 to get the highest reward possible. I mean, yes, technically you get also a special skin, and then you also can get another pin-up, whatever, but I think most people played really truly only for the vehicles, and all of them, with the exception of the Makava, are with a premium status, so you can get premium vehicles essentially for free. And even if you missed out on a few days, you still could obtain them by playing. But if you missed out too many days, then you still could buy the necessary tasks for 1,000 golden eagles per star, which is a more or less reasonable price. Obviously, different people see it differently. So this is the good aspect. Then the bad aspect was that it just simply felt like a job. It was repetitive, it was exhausting, and it was very time consuming. Let's make no mistake. And also the tasks or the requirements for the star for the tanks have gone up. So they have become more time consuming, more difficult, and I think we will talk about this in just a moment, that this is absolutely not what I wanted to see. Then the ugly part was really the feedback from the community to itself via team killing, while really rough language was always very present, and then that was not really great. Sometimes I was affected, sometimes I saw team killing on the enemy team. A lot of people reacted pretty toxic to kills getting stolen, especially in RRB. Then they executed the guy stealing the kill, and then reports were slung forth and back, and it was not pretty to see. It didn't happen all the time, but some matches were really, really toxic, and I showed just a very, very small aspect of this in a J6K1 video right at the start. So then the upcoming marketplace madness will be insane. I just looked it up. The Makava Mark 1 from a previous event is still at roughly 83 dollars or gaijin coins as the lowest offering, and the highest request, I'd say, is at 63 gaijin coins. Again, this is not a premium tank, and this tank will come stock. So the people will go absolutely mad on the marketplace, and this is a more or less unregulated market. And I think that it just shows the true nature of this community in some aspects, which is really sad to see. And also, I saw a lot of abuse of vehicles that are very good in certain aspects. So the most overpowered vehicles were brought out, and I just featured them on my channel myself, and I participated all in them, but it was not quite the maximum amount of trash. For example, the R3, when it was just rushing the caps, and then a lot of people tried to seek an early death to go into the next match. I at least tried to then participate in the battle, shoot down aircraft, and just ambush lightly armored vehicles, which was really great and very quick fun, I have to say, I've got to admit. But also the same with Hellcats. Then the madness of top tier was just absolutely crazy and brain melting. And yeah, then the good old KV-220. Yeah, using an event vehicle to get an event vehicle, that's a good Soviet design, comrade. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then let's briefly talk about the increase in requirements between Operation Heat and Operation Frost when it comes to the tanks. And so for the Operation Heat, you had to destroy 45 enemies. In realistic battle, it's 23. You had to win 10 battles with an activity of 70% and higher, or you had to help to destroy 25 enemies, aka 25 assists. With the Operation Frost, the requirements have gone up to 55 kills, so 28 in realistic battles, 12 wins with 70% activity or higher, and 30 kill assists, while 50 caps and 11 enemies in one battle or 6 in realistic battle still stayed the same. Now this was argued with that the rewards are more valuable, and we have to discuss this in just a moment. And this moment is now. So now the comparison between the rewards of Operation Heat and Operation Frost. And I just want to quickly discuss them one by one, or just in comparison. So for the Operation Heat, we got as the first tank the BT-7 F-35. It's great fun, it has a great gun, and it is insanely quickly, very useful for flanking actions, for distracting the enemy. It can scout, and it just can just bring a lot of headache to the enemy team. The QF 3.7 RAM looks like a budget flak toaster for the Germans. It has a 94mm, which is unique in many aspects, but it's not really a tank that I would feel like playing all day long. But both are premiums. I value the BT-7 F-32 more. Then let's talk about the first plane. The Bf-110C6 for Germany for the Operation Heat versus the Tisma. And I think that they are equal. I think that the Tisma is just a touch more usable because it is also better in RRB as a fighter. But I think both are really great as event vehicles. They are really strong versus tanks, and they are pretty versatile. They are pretty unique, very cool, both of them. I think they are, in my opinion, equal. Then let's talk about the ships, and then we have for the Operation Heat the River class, the K246, and I really like this because you can just blab and one-shot those poor patrol boats, and you are at a battle rating of 3.3. In contrast, we have the 94 feet PT-811 for America as a premium for the Operation Frost. And don't get me wrong, statistically speaking, it's a really good patrol boat. It has 4 torpedoes. It has 2 40mm Bofors guns, which are really great. And it is really, really quick. But it just isn't as straightforward as the River class in its meta. And it has a higher battle rating, and it fights much more often destroyers. So in my opinion, not that great and also not that unique. Then we come to, again, the second row of rewards where you have to get 10 out of 12 stars to obtain them. And let's begin with the ship. And I think that the IGN Udachi is so much better of a reward than the Type 1924 Jaguar. The Type 1924 Jaguar for Germany isn't really extremely bad, but if you compare it at its own battle rating of 3.7 to the other 3.7s in the German tech tree, let's just briefly do this so that you just realize the magnitude of compression within the German tech tree itself. We have the Type 1924 Leopard that also has 3 main guns, but they are not 105mm but 12.8 centimeters. They fire faster and they have bigger shells with more TNT in them, and so you can see that in a gunfight you will horribly lose to the Leopard. Then you also have the Type 1939 T22 and also the T31 as the premium. They just simply have better secondaries, so more AA, and they also have an extra gun, an extra 1 of 5. They're just simply better. And that's before we come to the Kanonenboot K2, which just not only has more guns, but also bigger ones, and has armor, and spawns with the patrol boats, and has more flak on it. So you also will lose a gunfight with it. So there you have it. That is the value of the Type 1924 Jaguar or Jaguar. And for the Operation Heat, you have the Udachi, which just perfectly fits the meta. It has 16 long lances, it's a full-fledged premium, and it also has still 5 5-inch guns. But you know, the long lances are the main weapon, so it's really great for enduring confrontations. It's really great for just annihilating an entire convoy at the long ranges. So the Udachi, significantly better than the German reward. So I cannot really agree that the rewards are more valuable. Then we come to the plane. And this is the P-59A rank 4 premium jet for the Americans versus the J6K1. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing really exceptionally wrong with the J6K1. Great firepower, great climb rate, can turn really well. But it has some issues, you know, that the guns sometimes, in my opinion, are a bit sparky, but you have 6 of them. But then a little bit of rudder wobbling, but there are so many aircraft that have this, so it's a good reward premium, but it's nothing really outstanding for Japan in contrast to the P-59. So again, in my opinion, this point goes to the Operation Heat, where the reward is just better. And then let's come to the tank, and this is where the Orbital 74 HVG completely beats the shit out of the Merkava Mark IIB and is also significantly more valuable. It has a lower battle rating. It's significantly more useful for the meta. It has also a stabilizer and APFSDS, and it is just significantly better. And it is a premium, whereas the Merkava is not really outstanding in terms of mobility. Its armor is useful in terms of survivability, but you know, we already have such a tank, and it comes stock without also even a premium bonus. So keep this in mind. So I can absolutely not understand why the requirements for the tank star tasks have gone up feelable. So I think Operation F.R.O.S.T is not as great as Operation Heat, but still you got a lot of value out of it playing it. And now let's get to the second topic finally. And this is Gaijin's self-fulfilling prophecy. And what I'm talking here about is that the queue times are the key aspect to success in the books of Gaijin, and I don't really agree with this. What I'm talking about is that Gaijin is happily sacrificing balance and introduces even more compression just to keep the queue times low. And I absolutely can understand this. It makes sense, because if the queue times are long, you're not really feeling playing it, so you leave the queue, and that increases the queue times for the rest of the player base as well. So this is something to take into consideration when we talk about the following topic. But I think that Gaijin has really a lot of other problems that make that queue time thing a problem in the first place. What I'm talking about is that we have a lot of diversive game modes, you know. We have arcade, we have simulator, we have realistic battles. They might have been named differently throughout the years, but you know what I'm talking about. Then we also have 4 different vehicle classes: ships, planes, tanks, and helicopters. Then we also have kind of a lot of stretch of battle ratings already. We're talking here 1.0 to 10.3. But the problem is that we are going from pre-World War II to modern eras with the vehicles that we have already in the game, with the future of naval forces to be seen. So we have here the problem that the community is split between so many aspects of War Thunder already. Another community is requesting decompression so that the maximum battle rating goes significantly higher. I've stated in many other videos that I expect, in terms of actual balance, that with the vehicles and their performance in game, that we need an expansion to at least battle rating 15. Not 10.7 or 11, no, 15, you know, from I think 5.0 onwards, especially from 7.7 onwards. It's just crazy what kind of tanks meet each other. And so I think that Gaijin is making themselves an easy life in just saying, it cannot be done, it's impossible because of the queue times. And you know, I have seen very long queue times, up to an hour, 40 minutes in naval forces before they introduced bots were not something really rare, especially at night. But I think that the actual problem is the lack of players due to the other problems in War Thunder. And Gaijin has refused to really address them. We still have very bad map design in tanks, in planes, and in ship game mode. And we don't even have a separate helicopter game mode. So they all have to play. In realistic battle tanks, or they need to play the arcade version. And so they still selling those premiums, right? And so then they have to endure something like the Eddard's or Tunguska, which is great fun for helicopters, I guess. If you're not a really skilled player and you know exactly what to do second by second from the very early spawn, you're dead. So much for that. So I think that we need to... that Gaijin really needs to address the map design. They need to address the horrible grind, especially the horrible stock grind, the economy overall. The compression is also something that is mandatory, because a lot of the vehicles are, like feeding pearls to the pigs, because they are so inferior to a lot of the other meta dominating vehicles. And so I think that the compression, Gaijin thinks that compression is the solution to a lot of problems, like the queue times. But in my opinion, even more people in the long run stop playing the various different game modes because they just can't handle it. There are always people that don't mind this, because they are actually in the vehicles being responsible for this compression. So I think that this is a self-fulfilling prophecy in the way that Gaijin thinks that the problem is the solution. And I think that a lot of vehicles have, their good old shit beaten out of them by other vehicles at the same battle rating, because they are hopelessly inferior. Not because they are bad tanks, ships, planes, but they're just matched up against tanks that they were never designed to fight, and where the other vehicles were just designed to fight them. And I still think that the prime example is the HMS Hawkins versus the Admiral Graf Spee at the same battle rating, which is absolutely laughable. And at the end of the day, it's all down to Gaijin's decisions to implement at a very frantic rate more and more top tier stuff without addressing them with a new battle rating. And I think that Gaijin themselves celebrated them for raising the battle rating to 10.3. Yes, it brought great relief, but imagine if we decompress down to battle rating 7.7 and stretch the vehicles apart. It's not the problem that there are no complete lineups. We saw the lack of lineups in other nations. They could deal with this as well. But it's just Gaijin refusing so hard. They are making this 2019 suggestion, reward, feedback, review, whatever. And then the first thing that comes online is we need the compression. No, it's impossible. This is just Gaijin at its finest. We make suggestions and they say no, it's impossible. So I don't know what to think about this. I think that as long as this is a problem, we have all the problems in War Thunder. And if Gaijin really doesn't play their own game, they always say they do. But essentially, I don't think that they understand their own game anymore. They might play arcade matches here and there. They might play a few realistic matches here and there. And then they get their ass handed to them. They think, oh, maybe we should get good. But essentially, they don't understand their own game. It's like being a car manufacturer and not being a driver. That just doesn't really come together very well, does it? So the third big topic is fishing, and I have posted last year, believe it or not, 1 or 2 fishing videos, and some of you were quite excited about this, to see this on my channel, and I have not made that many videos, to be honest, but I was out there quite often. And I really enjoyed this. So I now got all the licenses again for this year, and I also have teamed up with a few guys that also are now starting again with fishing after some years of break. And now one of the problems that I had last year was to handle both the fish and the camera at the same time. And when it comes to the simple thing of deciding between the fish and the footage, I definitely prefer the fish because, believe it or not, but I ate most of them that were at a reasonable size, of course. And I have always the problem that I was out there at night. So like 10, 11, 12 o'clock and as early as 1 or 2 o'clock in the night. So when it was just simply dark. Because this is where a lot of the fish really had the most of their activities that I was after. And so this is something that you have to keep in mind. Handling a fish on a very steep edge of the river at night with a camera, that was a bit too experimental even for me. So yeah, that was a thing. So this year I obviously want to get better equipment. I also want to just train it a little bit, and you get out there not alone but with company. You have somebody to hold the camera and to also dictate the light when a fish has taken the bait. So I have gained a lot, and I mean a lot of experience. Last year it was the first time fishing on a big river itself, and I obviously had to adapt a lot of the equipment for this, and I'm now much more comfortable in getting out there and knowing also the locations, knowing the structure of the riverbed and so forth. There are so many aspects that you have to learn about a stretch of water. Which kind of fish are in there? How big are they? Where are they? How do they behave? Because the very same fish in one stretch of the water can act completely different to another stretch of water. So this is something that is not that easy to understand if you have never really tried going fishing yourself and trying to make it not just getting a worm on the hook and just throwing it out there. Yes, that works, but not for the fish that I'm after. And I also have actually talked to the big boss and have asked him if there is any sort of activity when it comes to doing a little bit of research to the stretch of water with electrical fishing, that he should call me, and I want to participate in this because I'm really interested in every single aspect. I'm one of those persons that when I do something, I always do it a little bit extreme. Yeah, look at War Thunder. So this is something that I have planned for this year, and again, we will see later on. but I think that there was a good feedback also from my family, to catch fresh fish and to butcher it, to prepare it, and so many sort of fish that I have not caught yet that I want to really catch, especially the big catfish, because I know for sure that there are monsters with 2 meters plus in this river, but they haven't gone that big without getting also smart at the same time. So this will be the challenge for this year when it comes to fishing, and I'm really, really looking forward to you. And whenever there is good footage, I'll promise I'll make an additional video to my War Thunder content. And now let's answer questions from the last Duck Talks. So the first question comes from Jay Wild. Hashtag question, something much simpler. What did you give yourself for Christmas? Well, actually, not all that much, but I got one really great gift, and that was from my girlfriend. And she bought me a really, really great whiskey. And I think now she has successfully done it. I'm getting back into whiskeys. You have to see it like this. I also got gifted some whiskeys at my birthday a few months back, and from other friends, and so it's developing a little bit of whiskey tasting. Actually, my girlfriend gifted me something else, and that is a huge glass decanter. I don't know how you pronounce it, but in Germany it's decanter. I think it has the same name in English. And so this is just something really nice for whiskey tasting. And we already made some plans with some of our friends to do so in the near future. So yeah, that is something that I'm really looking for. Whiskey, it's really tasty, but I really can't really drink it in excess. So it's something that I really value for the taste, believe it or not. So then next question from Juhast Balas. I hope I pronounced that right, because I have no idea how to pronounce it otherwise. Hashtag question. What do you think of the current state of assists in RRB? I have played a lot of low tiers in RRB recently, just for fun, and those low tier, low caliber guns are hard to get critical hits with, especially Japanese 7.7mm. They seem to work worse than other nations' 7.6 or so. Shouldn't they rework the assist system again? In my opinion, people would not get kill steal that much if they would be 100% sure to get at least an assist from an encounter. Okay, that is an issue indeed, and I have to say, first of all, if you just throw a lot of high explosive cannon shells at the enemy and he disintegrates, then that's a safe thing. But very often you get into a turning engagement and you set the enemy on fire, and then it's time to bail in the first place. And then very often recently it happened that the fire extinguished himself, and then he crashed. And despite getting a critical hit, he just crashes without crediting me the kill. But also very often I set somebody on fire, get multiple critical hits on him, and somebody else a minute or so later shoots him down and I don't get a kill assist. So the system by itself is extremely frustrating, extremely unreliable, and I don't care about reworks, it just should work, and it never ever did in the last 2 years or so. So this is something that I absolutely hate, because that is just pure frustration. That has nothing to do with the plane's performance. That is just something that I call bad coding. It's shit. That's what it is. And I have no other words for it. Sorry. It's shit. I'm frustrated by this aspect. A kill assist should be something when I participated in damaging the enemy so that he succumbs to his fate. And it should be independent from the time. If I did the damage 1 minute ago or 10 minutes ago, it doesn't really matter. When he crashes trying to land because of the damage, then I should get credited the kill. We had the system working 4 and 3 years ago. Why did it get worse? I don't know. It's just, I have no explanation for it. Then the next question comes from Schatten X. Hashtag question. Do you think the Bismarck gets a battle rating of 5.7? Well, yeah. With the current state of naval forces, I think, yeah, if not even 5.3 because of the memes. Yeah, yeah. In all honesty, the Bismarck should get at least 7 or 8, but I have no idea what Gaijin tries to implement in between. With the compression that I explained so often at 5.7, I have no idea what they're up to. I have absolutely no idea. Then we have a pretty long question from KK. Hashtag question. Hey Napalm, what do you think about bringing back one point of realism that the World War II tanks have that 7.0 plus don't have, namely realistic nation matchups? I don't mean perfectly realistic, but I mean mainly historical matchups. I believe it to be totally wrong that Cold War and modern American British tanks are always pitched against German tanks. I'm of the opinion that there should be a rough line of NATO versus USSR China. Smaller nations like Japan or France can easily switch around and should for the sake of gameplay, but the main nations should play against what their tanks were designed to fight. 10.3 will always be messy with mixed battles due to the natural limitations, but M60s should not be always against Leopards. I think this would help fix some balance issues. It works well in World War II battle ratings, and I'd find it really helpful and enjoyable beyond. Thoughts? P.S. Thank you for your excellent videos and dedication. So, thanks for the nice words. There are multiple problems with this idea. First of all, I think that if you look closely into the World War II era, it is absolutely strange when German tanks fight alongside Russian tanks. I don't think I have to explain that one, right? Also, I think that American and British tanks are always tied up with each other. I have never seen all that many battles where America fought British tanks. That's number one. And I think that this is the last kind of two nations sticking together. What you describe is already kind of existing, but where do you really make the cut with the matchmaker? Because in terms of battle ratings, a lot of the World War II tanks have the same battle rating as some post-World War II tanks. Think about 6.7 battle rating with the Tiger II, etc., meeting the Centurion tanks, you know. So that is one point. Where do you really make the cut? Where do you really let them fight in that one meta versus the other meta, especially when it comes down to up tiers and down tiers in that region? It will be a big mess. Then I think one of the main factors is not really which tank fights which tank, when the compression is so intense and when mostly we have copy pasted tanks in all nations anyway these days. So I see where you're going with this. It's a nice idea, but I think that it only works to battle rating 5.3, 5.7 best, and then after this it's just wild. Next question comes from X Xavier. I hope this is how you pronounce it. Hashtag question. What is your opinion on the direction War Thunder took off the past year with the vehicle development? From what I've noticed, there had been a tremendous amount of copy-paste. They always use the same existing vehicles with few changes. Example, event vehicles. Oval HVG, BT7 F32, BF10 C6, MX50 Zeppelin D, the second Merkava Mark 2B. Not to mention there is now quite a lot of copy-paste vehicles being added into the regular tech trees, like with the case of the Italian and German, despite them having vehicles of their own that can be found in community-made tech trees. Now Swedish Air has been added and there is not even enough vehicles to fit the 6 vehicles minimum per rank, let alone 5. What has happened? Is Gaijin trying to save money? Are they desperate? Is it perhaps why the last KF50 patch was 50 discount premium? It really feels like the community is on a sinking ship. Note prediction. It's going to be interesting to see what will become of the Swedish ground tree. They had a lot of unique vehicles on their own, but we'll see how many of them will be copy-paste with slight modifications. So yeah, I agree to a lot of the things. However, if you look into the old tech trees, if you look at the, for example, the Panzer IV F2 versus the H variant or the J variant and the G variant, they're also very similar, like you pointed out with the Orbital HVG, the BT-7 F-32, the BF-110C6, and also the Merkava Mark II-B. So yeah, there are very similar vehicles out there with very similar armament, performance, etc. Also look at the T-34 line, look at the Sherman line, and so forth, and also with all the aircraft. I think that this is seen a bit too drastic in this case. However, the general tendency, I would agree. And I think that this is both a smart and also desperate decision to introduce, for example, the Chinese tech tree the way that I did. The Chinese tech tree is a very funny agglomeration of very different kinds of vehicles, which make for very interesting lineups that you couldn't acquire any other way. So I think that it is down to you if you play them, if you grind them, and what you think about them. And if you look at the Chinese tech tree, I don't think if we have implemented now again in terms of copy paste, already existing vehicles, that's at the end of the day not adding to the problem. But yes, when it comes to the new tech trees, as you say that they don't have enough tech tree vehicles to get the minimum amount of vehicles, that is always the same with new nations. I have seen this with the Italian nation, I've seen this with the French nation, and so this is no big surprise that we see it with the Swedish and also the Chinese nation the same way. And in future patches, we will see add-ons here and there. You have to see it different. This is not a time where you can go through those tech trees as fast as possible. Later, the grind will be longer and stiffer and not really that biased anymore, if you know what I'm talking about. The KF50 with 50% discount already, I don't know, I was really wondering myself. I have no answer to this. I can only guess wildly, and I have no idea what I should talk about that. Then another question from Iobus, actually two questions, and this is hashtag question. Napalm, as Gaijin CEO said last time, they will never let World War II tanks fight other World War II tanks because they say it's vehicles versus vehicles, not era versus era. I love only World War II tanks, but in my 6.7 I'm facing missiles and jets just where they don't balance that shit, at least just limit plane spawns or remove them at all from tank RB. Second question, how are you doing, Napalm, and when can we see you, buddy? So, first of all, I'm doing fine at the moment. And when can we see we? I can see myself very often in the mirror. Jokes aside, maybe with some of the fishing videos. I can't promise anything, and it's the internet, so I'm very hesitating in that aspect. Then, the problem with what Gaijin CEO said, that it makes absolutely no sense, because when you look at various different time frames, we are not just only having a look at the compression, but also the feature creep. And I think that this is quite hilarious. The prime example is still the Stridswagen 81 or the MX 13 SS11, which have either a stabilizer and firing APDS or have an autoloader, but both of them have SS11 missiles, anti-tank missiles, and that at bat rating 6.7 with premium tanks, no thanks. And you can fight in theory even Tigers with that, which is hilarious. But it's not just only the German tech tree, it's also affecting the American, the British itself, and all the other nations. So, again, this is just pay to win. This is just feature creep, power creep, and we have seen it over years. Gaijin has no interest in making the game more historically accurate. They are not interested in balancing. They are only interested in money. But the question is, when are they doing too much of the pay-to-win stuff, of the making vehicle or premium vehicles very attractive by overpowering them? So far, the train is still going for Gaijin. That's the problem. Next question comes from Tech Priest, and it's a technical question. What a coincidence. Hashtag question, is the manual engine control worth it? I'm a relatively decent pilot, but I never bothered with manual engine control. Am I missing out? The answer is clearly it depends. Manual engine control, in my experience or to my knowledge, is completely irrelevant for jets, and then there are aircraft where you simply don't need it. But there are a lot of aircraft where it really helps, especially in the climbing phase. I'm not an expert in manual engine control myself, but I have watched some guys on the internet from other people, and it is just very important. Then, especially with the new Swedish aircraft, the J21 series, for example, but also the Italian aircraft, that you open the radiator and oil flaps while you climb, while you go to altitude with a lot of web, right? Because very often then the engine overheats quickly, and with web you have just better control over this. When you then go into the fight, you then have to disable manual engine control again and go back to the auto engine control, because then things like the prop pitch, etc., they are better controlled by the AI in the fight when you do your maneuvers like killing the throttle, accelerating again, etc., etc. So I hope that answered your question. It's definitely worth looking into this. Next question comes from MLG Fro. I hope I pronounced it right. Hashtag question. Is there like a Discord where your fans can interact with each other and you maybe? Not yet, and I'm really thinking about if I should do it at all, because you know the terms of service with Discord are pretty rough, and this is like it's pretty rough. I'm thinking about it. I have to ask one of my friends if he sets it up for me. If he does this, then maybe in the near future. If he doesn't, then I better stay away from it, because the terms of services, they are really not fun at all. Keith Naras Asha asks, hashtag question, forgive me if I missed it in your videos thus far, but what is your reaction to the XM1? But only the GM model being increased to 9.3, while other rank 5 thermal equipped premium tanks continue to sit at 8.7. Well, this is Gaijin at their finest in terms of balance, and again, this is power creep and feature creep, and Gaijin simply don't know their own game. That's all that I can say. But I have to also say that, believe it or not, the XM1 in my books is just a touch better than the other 8.7 premiums. 9.3 is harsh, but you know, when the XM1 came out, it was, I guess, I'm not quite sure. Was it also 9.3 or 9.0? But yeah, it was also as close to the top ranks as it is right now. The XM1 shouldn't have been a premium in the first place. It's just a tank that again adds a lot to the compression, and where it was before previously responsible for it, now it suffers at the hands of it. That is just how Gaijin does things. It has never been different, sadly. Cool Cube asks, hashtag question, do you think 9.7 and 9.3 RRB is ruined because the MiG-21s got introduced? I just got the G91YS, and playing a stock jet against the MiG-21s is just heartbreaking. Well, first of all, I don't know too much about the MiG-21s, but is it really surprising that with every single patch we see a new king in the sky, that we see new cancer? And you know, talking about the G91YS and the stock jet in general, well, there are always, especially the higher the battle rating go, the higher the risk is of falling victim to the so-called battle rating black holes. And they are really annoying, because you always get up-tiered, and the performance difference, especially in the meta that we have between a stock jet and an upgraded jet, is always rough. And if that jet in the first place is competitive, even fully upgraded, also has to be seen. So it's down to you if you want to continue that painful way, or if you just want to take a break from it, because it's just not worth fighting an uphill battle. This is why I myself play jets so rarely. It's not that I don't like jets, it's just that I hate the meta that they are facing. each other, and again, it's just compression. So, and that is all the questions that I could find that actually made sense to read out. That's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the topics, namely the Operation Frost, the Gaijin self-fulfilling prophecy, the phishing, and also the rest of the questions. Again, if you have a question, please ask it with the beginning of #question so I can find it much easier. I'll read all the comments and I answer if need be or to be wished. And with that, I think that's it for me today, finally. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the waves, in the skies, and on the battlefields of War Thunder.